medical anthropology emerged with professionalization, and professionalization is often marked by a number of different factors, including the creation of uh, journals as well as associations that deal very specifically with said phenomena that can essentially center academic interest in a particular area. The precursor to the Society for Medical Anthropology that we have today came in 1967 with a group for medical anthropology. The first chair of this was an applied anthropologist by the name of Hazel Weidman. Various transformations occurred up until 1971, where you see the Society for Medical Anthropology emerging when forming under the American Anthropological Association. Dorothy Layton was the first president of the Society for Medical Anthropology. She was a psychiatrist anthropologist. The statistics here show a fair number of individuals that are in fact members of the Society for Medical Anthropology. As of 2004, there were about 2,300 members, and this made up about 12% of the membership of the American Anthropological Association. The journals over time have included Medical Anthropology Quarterly, Medical Anthropology, Culture, Medicine, and Psychiatry, Social Science and Medicine, as well as Ethnomedicine. We also see that medical anthropologists are, of course, publishing in other journals, and we'll read a wide selection of journals over the course of this semester, journal articles from a number of different journals, both within the United States and outside of the United States, that are not limited to the aforementioned journals. So what are the various approaches or theories in medical anthropology? What is it that medical anthropologists are doing? And Singer and Baer note three main approaches. I add a fourth, which I think ties everything together and notes the applied aspect. And again, this is the question of, do you have a separate sort of applied setting, or does applied work sort of pervade all of these various approaches? So first, cultural construction of sickness or meaning-centered medical anthropology. Some of the questions here, how a society's understanding of and responses to disease are shaped by cultural assumptions about various life stages. So the beginning and end of life, the workings of the human organism as a whole, as well as the causes of ill health and misfortune. The approach here, the meaning-centered medical anthropology, would focus on the importance of cultural constructions. These are in fact pervasive. They exist in all medical systems. There are no cultural-free interpretations of the physical world, including in medicine. And so biomedicine in and of itself is also culturally constructed for the viewpoints of various medical doctors and biomedicine as a whole. The ecological or ecological evolutionary approach, sometimes referred to as medical anthropology, this analyzes the interaction between sociocultural patterns and the biological and environmental parameters within which humans operate. The focus here is on adaptation, the short and long-term implications of human health, of different environments and social and cultural arrangements, and looking at things like shifts in diet over time. The insights that come out of this that there is no one single cause of disease. And there's certainly been some critiques of the medical ecological approach from those that would follow meaning-centered medical anthropology as well as critical medical anthropology. But what we're seeing is an integration of those, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. The critical medical anthropologist would draw from political economy of health and Marxist theory. They will look at the distribution of wealth and power and the division of labor and how these affect disease patterns as well as healthcare access. Further, they would look at dominant cultural constructions of health and would look at how those have become dominant. Whose interest is essentially being put forward, and in what cultural context is this occurring? The fourth one here that Singer and Baer do not add is the application in the context of healthcare or applied medical anthropology. And again, from reading Singer and Baer, my interpretation is that they would look for this applied aspect that would occur throughout the various different theoretical approaches in medical anthropology, whether they're focused on medical ecology or the cultural construction of sickness and health, meaning-centered approaches, or critical medical anthropology. Medical anthropology today has, again, really coalesced in the calls for an integration of all these various approaches to develop an approach to the study of health and disease, which does the following. First, pays attention to ecological, biological, and cultural factors. Two, considers the political and economic forces that influence disease patterns and affect access to healthcare resources. And finally, offers an opportunity for health promoting interventions. And so this is where a lot of medical anthropologists are coming from today, integrating these various approaches. So in the following section here, I'd like to talk about medical anthropology in context of a number of different disciplines and how medical anthropology can and does intersect with those various different subfields of anthropology and outside of anthropology as well. In the context of archaeology, archaeology can be thought of as a cultural anthropology of the human past, looking at the various tools and technologies that were utilized, how social relations can be interpreted or inferred from those tools and technologies, as well as things like habitation and whatnot. One particular area of archaeology that's been developed, and there's really a cross here between this and biological anthropology, is the notion of paleopathology. And paleopathology is the study of past, particularly prehistoric diseases, so diseases that existed prior to the development of writing. History versus prehistory marked by the development of writing. It has gone through numerous stages of development. In the fourth stage of development, which has occurred since the 1970s, we're seeing an emphasis on more interdisciplinary approaches, incorporating in particular genetic studies. One of the key promises here is that it can solve medical mysteries. One such medical mystery includes the death of King Tut, which was from adverse interactions of several diseases and trauma-induced infection, rather than a number of other theories that had come out earlier. The emphasis here, too, is on potentially on malaria, as the authors of the text, Singer and Baer, point out. Medical anthropology and epidemiology. Epidemiology as a whole is concerned with the patterns and spread of disease, including controlling outbreaks. In the United States, there's the Center for Disease Control based out of Atlanta that would really be focused on epidemiological studies, trying to stay ahead of the spread of infectious diseases and how to control outbreaks when they do occur. The focus would be to seek out at-risk individuals for prevention interventions. That is, that those individuals that are most susceptible to potentially coming into contact and to leading to the spread of disease within a given population. As a sub-focus of this, there's cultural epidemiology, which is the integration of culture into basically creating a set of explanatory variables used by epidemiologists to explain disease. So an example of this would be condom use in the context of attempting to prevent the spread of STDs, namely HIV/AIDS. And one of the ideas that Singer and Baer discuss here, one of the case studies, is the use of condoms are seen as something that one does with casual intercourse, not the primary partner, because the primary partner is in fact someone that you would trust. And the use of a condom would be essentially conferring or saying to that individual, hey, I don't really trust you, or I'm not really fully committed in this relationship. And so this case study highlighted by Singer and Baer in their textbook look at the importance of individuals to how they use protection in the context of sexual intercourse in order to prevent the spread of STDs. One of the other aspects of this is sorcery and conspiracy beliefs, and how these are culturally constituted idioms of distress in those who are economically and politically marginalized. And we see this development, we'll talk about this in the context of Alexander King's work with soul suckers and vampiric shamans in the Russian Far East. We also see this in witchcraft accusations throughout Africa, and indeed There's a academic film, Witches in Exile, which highlights some of this and the marginalization of witches in particular, as well as witchcraft accusation for not only marginalized people within society outside of the power structure, but also those that are particularly vulnerable to accusations, including children. Medical anthropology and epidemiology also intersects around the idea of the health transition. These label broad changes that have occurred within particular historical phases in the health profile of populations and the primary causes of mortality. So how this shifts over time. And Singer and Baer highlight three different time periods where this occurs. The first around the Neolithic Revolution, the development of agriculture about 10,000 years ago. You see the development of agriculture, the domestication of plants and animals, the close association with animal populations and leading to infectious diseases, as well as more sedentary populations. Where you have more sedentary populations, this allows for the spread of disease and illness, primarily because you have greater concentrations often of population in these settings as well, which is going to allow for more people to become infected with a particular disease. The rise of industrial economics in the late 18th century with the chronic diseases and behavioral problems such as substance abuse emerging with the rise of factories. And again, a lot of this is the depopulating of rural areas and the intensification of urbanization as a whole. We further see an intensification with globalization. This is Harvey's work on globalization, where he talks about time-space compression. And with this, with the faster flows of people and goods across the world, there's more potential risk that comes into play. And along with this too, some of the work that Singer's been focused on in particular is this idea of syndemics, or the synergistic interaction among diseases. And again, this emerges with the last decades of the 20th century. Often the fall of the Berlin Wall is cited as the start of globalization. In fact, globalization occurs much earlier than that, but we do see an intensification with the crumbling of the former Soviet Union and an opening up of the world as a whole to trade and interaction, so an increased flow of people as well as goods overall. Public health is also another area where anthropology, another discipline where anthropology has been certainly engaged with. Public health looks at, it's a field that's concerned with assessing and improving the quality of health of the general populations with a particular focus on at-risk populations. There have been many turns in public health over time, and new sources of intersection have emerged along with these turns, particularly the focus on health inequality and disparity, looking at-risk populations. Some of the research methods that come out where anthropology can certainly contribute in terms of anthropologist research approach. A lot of the studies, particularly early on, but still today, we see these unilateral research model. Essentially, locals are left out of all discussions about how the study is going to be conducted, what's the focus, what are the end products and results. The collaborative model does a little bit more of the work with a local community, where locals may flesh out the details that were hatched at the context of research institutes or universities as a whole. The community-based participatory research we see much more frequently and much more looked at with favor, and I think we see this very clearly from Singer and Baer's work, where locals are fully involved in the research process all the way from inception to reporting results. Some of the different approaches in public health, the diffused evidence-based intervention, looking at scientifically proven intervention models, and this is necessary in order to qualify for some funding, as Singer and Baer point out with some CDC funding, for example. Translational research, again, this is important not only in the context of medical anthropology, but in anthropology as a whole. The intention to improve the flow of knowledge from research into action, the dissemination of information not only to academic, but also other audiences. That makes it relevant, accessible, and understandable for those that work in policy as well as prevention programs. The increased interest in complementary and alternative medicine that we see by over-the-counter alternative medicines, as well as the U.S.'s National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, and then rapid ethnographic assessment, which emerges in the 1980s.